You're listening to REIA Radio, the nationally trusted name in real estate investing. We dig deep to discover investors' why in real estate. If you want to skip all the BS and get in investors' heads, you're in the right spot. Be one of the thousands to check out REIARadio.com.
I did like jump around all over the place, and it very much is like, ooh, this is a cool idea. Let's chase this. And I think in the beginning, that's very good. The hard part is, let's say you're working a W-2 job, and then you become an entrepreneur and you start this thing. You're rewarded with that dopamine hit or financially or whatever it is by taking that leap. Now the problem is, as an entrepreneur, you want that dopamine hit again. And so it is very tempting to jump around and do the next thing. The problem is then you do lose the focus and you never grow this one thing to be really big.
This episode is brought to you by PropStream. PropStream is one of the most trusted real estate data software solutions. PropStream benefits all real estate professionals. You can find properties and contact homeowners on the go with PropStream's mobile app. We offer free academy courses tailored to real estate investors and agents. Take advantage of our live webinar demos to learn the software and scale your real estate business. Visit www.propstream.com and sign up for your 7-day free trial to get more leads and grow your business.
Welcome to REIA Radio, episode 170, Christmas edition, the holiday edition. Yeah, with Bryce, baby. No.
Rice,
baby.
I'm sorry about all this.
Bryce Matheson.
We just lost him. Jeez. Like, I'm out.
Drop off right now. No, like I've heard it all. I've heard Bryce Roney. I mean, you hit me with all of them.
Hey, try having your name be Ted. You got Teddy Bear, Teddy Rockspin. Yeah. It just goes on.
Teddy Ball Game.
Teddy Bomb. Yeah.
So, are you having troubles today?
I haven't even had a drink yet. I don't know what you're talking
Bomb. About. Okay, enough about Ted. Bryce, thanks for joining, man. This is fun. I've already talked to you a couple of times this week.
That's right.
It's a pleasure. We're just continuing on the
Let's keep it rolling. No, I'm here for it. This is amazing.
Bro thing going on here I'm not aware of.
Oh, you'll see.
There's a slight bromance. It's growing. It's just a slow burn right now.
Hey, man, you didn't get invited to Vegas, so it's obviously not that cool.
How do you know? How do you know you weren't the last person on my list?
Well, at least I made it.
Okay, that's true. didn't make it to the Sphere, but whatever.
I did miss the Vegas invite, but round two, let's do it.
Awesome. Okay, when I turn 100, we're going to go there again and light it
up.
I'm
never going to live down the Sphere thing.
No, you're not. Nope. That was unraisable that morning. So question for you. If my notes are correct here, you worked for a company called the Idaho National Laboratory. Is that right?
I did. Uh-huh.
Is that a Department of Energy affiliate or offshoot?
It is. Yeah, you've done your homework. That's pretty good.
So how did you feel when Trump came into office the first time around and said he was going to, quote unquote, cancel the Department of Energy? Did that hit home with you? Were you? I was trying to remember the time frame on when that happened.
No, I was all for it. I'm like, just defund it all because it's just a giant shit show, and the money is not going to anything like that's worth anything.
Everybody says that, don't they?
Pretty much, yeah.
No, I mean there was a little buzz around the office like talking about it, but ultimately like there's been so many politics going back and forth around whether that'll actually happen, and I don't know. There's so much to it that I wasn't really worried about it.
One of my favorite authors is Michael Lewis. He wrote kind of like the more popular side that's been made into movies. He wrote Moneyball. He wrote The Blind Side. He wrote The Big Short. So I've read every book that he has written. I've read Liar's Poker is another really good one. But he wrote a book and it was about, and we generally try to avoid politics on this podcast, but whatever. We'll work
where does the money go?
Yeah, and so Trump, when he took office, Michael Lewis wrote this book called The Fifth Risk, which is hard to say. I don't know why he decided to do that, but it was basically, for the most part, about the handoff from the Obama administration to the Trump administration. What happened during that? What was some catastrophic misses that happened during that, as well as any transitioning presidency? There's generally hiccups there, but yeah, he was like, didn't realize that the Department of Energy was responsible for the nuclear codes. Like that was just Oh, that's in there too. He thought it was just like weather. Like what do we need weather for? There's 40,000, I think, employees in the Department of Energy or something like that, and
something crazy. Yeah.
Anyway, just I have that jumped out at me on your thing. So, what was it like working for the government and then the private sector, or vice versa?
Oh, man, don't even get me started. It's such a shit show. It really is. And it's funny because you said you don't talk politics, and here we are talking politics. So I'm all for it. But no, like on a regular basis, I would have people walking past my cube, and it's like it's the end of the fiscal year, and they're like, hey, I've got $6 million I got to spend. What can I spend it on? So it's just like the typical government waste that just pisses you off, because you're like, I pay taxes for this, and it's just, I don't know. So going from that to the private sector was, a really, really stark contrast, obviously, just because everything is so much more efficient. It's just more optimized. Like, honestly, truly, we had government programs that you're like, really? Like, this is how it's run? Particularly, I was in Department of Homeland Security doing IT and cybersecurity. And I was like, really? This is cutting edge. This is what we're doing. This is the way that the government runs things. Like, there are gaping holes, the size of, I won't say, but anyway, it's great. It's a beautiful thing.
Gaping holes the size of Idaho.
I'll be here all week. That is crazy though. 6 million. Like, I know that probably actually happens a lot around
all the time
public sector places where people are like, oh, we have this left in the budget, and they're panicking because they know if they don't spend it, their budget's going to get cut the next year. So that's why they go around. They're like, what can we buy?
Absolutely.
Let's buy all this equipment or buy all this crap. But I would say, even private sector companies do that too. I like when I worked for Conagra Foods several years ago. They had the same thing where they'd have an end of year, the fiscal year was ending, and then they had a budget left. They were under budget on some things, and they're just like, oh no, let's get some computers or let's buy some extra whatever. And you're like, why don't you just save that money for when you actually need it and actually have a process?
Or give the people a commission or something for how much money they save. Give them 5% as an incentive. Like, hey, whatever you say, this goes directly to your paycheck. I'm all for it.
Okay, now that we've solved the public and private sector budgetary problems, let's move on to how you landed in the technology sphere. So when you were the ripe old age in 2010 of 18 years old, you went to BYU. Is that right?
I did.
Is it Utes? No, that's Utah.
No, those are Cougars.
Cougars. Sorry, Ted likes Cougars. Tell us about that. What was it like going to, because BYU is they're a primarily Mormon school, correct?
It is. Uh-huh.
And so was that, did you grow up in Idaho? It looked like maybe Washington was your spot. Or
yeah. Wow, man, you've really done your homework. This is good. Yeah. So born and raised in Washington. So I was there till I was 18, moved out to Idaho, and there's like a branch sister campus of BYU out there. So graduated from there in 2015. Graduated with a bachelor's degree in information technologies, and just kind of pursued that from there. But yeah, I was, and that's a whole other avenue we can dive down. But born and raised Mormon, no longer Mormon, and I've got stories we can tell there. But anyway,
so the family's real proud.
Yeah, they're loving it.
By the way, my brother-in-law is also from Washington, and he was Mormon and then is no longer. Hey, we're not bagging on any religion here, but we'll take all comers.
Did you travel any countries as part of
the mission?
The mission, yeah.
I didn't. No, I was stateside, but I did get to learn Spanish, so I'm fluent in Spanish, which is pretty cool. But I was in Albuquerque and like El Paso area.
Do some door knocking.
Oh yeah, years of my life was spent door knocking. So
Pace Morby always has some good stories about doing this because he's also Mormon.
Yeah.
Oh, is he? I didn't know that.
Yeah,
I'm not sure.
I think he is.
Well, hey, we're coming in hot, talking about religion and politics.
We haven't had
anything
a drink,
else.
We haven't had a drink yet.
I know. I don't know what other controversial topics we can bring up here, but we're working on it. All right.
How do you guys feel about abortion? Pro-life? I'm just kidding.
Stay tuned, people. That'll be coming up in the later part of the episode. Okay, so IT background, worked for the government, worked for a private sector. You've got wife and 2 young kids. Is that right?
Correct. Yep.
How old are the little ones?
4 and almost 2.
Here's the funny thing: no matter how old they are, everybody always goes, "Oh, that's a fun age,"
Right.
until they hit like 16. Then it's
Two is
not fun for anyone.
I thought 2 is fun. 3 was always a tough year.
I always said, man, if somebody would just drop off a kid when they're 5 years old at my house instead of having to deal with the first 5 years of their life, there's some cute spots. Don't get me wrong, but man, they're high maintenance at that age.
Yeah, they are. I saw a reel the other day, and you know the saying is, you know, don't blink because you'll miss it. And there's a mom with newborn twins, and she's like all dried up and nursing and like crusty milk everywhere, and she's like staring at the camera, and she's like blinking like a million times, like, please get me through this phase because it's just so brutal.
Yeah.
How many more do you think you're gonna have, Bryce?
No, this factory is closed. We are done.
Baby factory out of business.
My wife was like, I don't know, like 3, maybe 5, and I was like, I was thinking like 1, maybe 2. It's like,
It's called anchoring. That's a negotiation tactic.
2 is where we landed.
All right, well done. So IT, you worked in a couple of different worlds there. It seems like you get bored easily. I was looking through your LinkedIn profile. Seems like you have a few job changes there. Started
a lot of stuff.
Businesses.
Yep.
I can relate. I also get bored easily. Ted's resume looks like the old Yellow Pages because he's got how many employers do you think? Take a stab. 30 different employers.
I mean, there's times I had 3 to 5 jobs at a given time, part time. So
OnlyFans does not count. We've already talked.
Man,
about
I would
this.
be rich if I had that.
Feet finder. Anyway, so
listen to this, like squirrel moment. But I have a business idea for you, okay, Ted?
Okay.
It's a reverse OnlyFans. So what happens is I send you a pic every day, and you have to pay me to stop sending the pic.
Ooh. That sounds like a great meme.
So,
oh my god, that is hilarious. We're gonna ponder whether or not this should stay in the podcast. I think it should. And look what we have here.
oh
Aiden
wow.
Bear is on camera.
It's a Christmas miracle.
In his first. Okay, so let's check the colors.
All right,
Are they similar?
nice amber color here.
Yeah.
I think you got a little more darkness in yours, just like your soul.
Little inconsistency between the
That's
two.
okay. Hey, variation is
Okay.
as a slice of life. I don't know.
Okay,
I lost my proverb.
So a 10 is perfect.
Okay,
Let's test them.
Here we go.
Cheers.
Oh, don't do that.
Um,
That's ASMR. I'm gonna. You know what? I'm gonna call it good. I'm gonna give this I'm gonna give it a 7. I'll actually give you a 7.5 due to it being your first one. How's that? Is that fair? Okay.
the number I had was 7. So
Okay.
That's
yeah,
pretty
thank you.
good.
I think
got
that's
the fancy ice cubes and everything.
we do. Hey, we don't mess around.
We
here,
don't
man.
spare
We
any
got a
expense
big.
here
We
at
have a
REIA
big.
Radio.
We spend more money on bourbon than we do all of our equipment, and it shows.
Your entire marketing budget is
That's
bourbon.
Okay, back to you, Bryce. If you want to grab a bourbon, if it somehow appears one of your 2 or 4-year-old wants to bring one in, that'd be fun. Okay, IT to house rentals to house flips to hard money lending. This is going to
That's
be
right.
fun. All right, unwind this spaghetti here of getting in the real estate world. When did it happen? Why did it happen?
Yeah, so we started about 2016 or so, mostly just out of desperation. As you know now, this is a farce, but like everyone talks about real estate being the promised land for passive income and wealth, and I mean I shouldn't say it's not a good thing, but you dive in the trenches and you realize it's not this holy grail of passive income like you think. But anyway, we found that out years down the road, but yeah, it was mostly desperation. I think I was making 40 grand a year at my first like big boy job out of college. And so I had a house that I was house hacking at the time. I was renting out the extra bedrooms to some roommates. And I was like, hey, this is great. I live for free. They pay my mortgage. And then I think there was maybe 20 or 30 bucks left over at the end of the month. So they bought me lunch too. And so that was kind of like the first taste of real estate. Kind of got the taste of blood in the water. And so we just steadily continued down that road and just kind of scaled up and grew from there.
When you had the idea of getting into this, and you like the idea of passive income, quote unquote, what steps did you take to educate yourself on, how would you even know what to buy, when to buy it, how to buy it, all the mechanics of everything? What was your learning path?
Sure. So, full disclosure, I was a moron. So I was living in an apartment with these same roommates, and there was no like, I want to get into real estate. It was more like, I have a big boy job now, and the next like logical step in my progression to adulting is I should buy a house. And there was no other logic behind that. Like I didn't run numbers. I didn't do any analysis. I was so stupid that I looked at a house on Zillow, and I didn't even really realize that you had to have a realtor to go and like look at the house. Like I walked up to their front steps and knocked on their front door, and I was like,
you did.
Hey, I did. I had no idea what I was doing. I'm like, hey, I'd like to take a look at your house. And that's how it started.
Okay. I love the taking action part of it. You can figure out it's intelligent later. Okay. So you bought your first house. Now, did you move into it and then keep it as a rental, or did you buy it specifically for the purpose of rental income?
Like I said, it was like, no, this was my house. I wanted to move in and get out of the apartment scene. And so it was just kind of a natural, easy thing. Like, hey, instead of my roommates paying a different landlord, just pay me. And then it's an upgrade for them because they get, a driveway to park in and a garage and backyard and all this kind of stuff. So it was a win-win all around. But like I said, I didn't know that house hacking was a thing. I didn't know it was a term. It's not like I had like dove into bigger pockets first and then done this. It was just, I want to live in a house and I've got these roommates, and that's really how it started.
Oh, that's cool, man. All right. So you kind of breezed over 70 or so flips in there too, with your story here on how you.
Well, that comes after the fact. That's later on in the progression.
Okay, so you got you got your first property, and what was it like after that? So you bought one. How long was it before you bought your first rental?
Yeah, so that was in 2016. 2018, I was engaged and getting married, and so life looked super different. And my wife and I, we joke now that we fell in love at first interest rate. And the reason we say that is because
She was a banker.
like she was doing the exact same thing. She had bought a house and she was renting out the rooms, and like this was before I had met her or anything. So our first date, we actually went on a hike. And the whole time we were talking about houses and what your roommates paid and what your interest rate was and like all this different kind of stuff. And so we still kind of joke about it, but like that was one of the main things that attracted me to her. So
We have that same
anyway
issue with our wives also, just so you know. Yeah. We just talk houses and real estate, and
You probably talked more on your first date about real estate investing than I have with my wife.
your entire life.
Yeah, we've been married for 19 years. So
my conversation with my wife yesterday was, just so you know, the water line broke at the duplex that we're doing. That's the only information she gets.
yeah, they never hear the wins. That's the well, they only occasionally do. And they're like, so please continue with your journey here.
Yeah. So like I said, life looked very different in 2018. I was getting married. We decided to actually sell my house because again, I was kind of like a moron and I didn't realize like, oh, maybe we should keep this as a rental or whatever. But it actually worked out okay because this was 2018 and quite literally anything you bought in 2018 made sense financially. And so we ended up selling that house, paid off. I didn't have like a ton of student debt, maybe like $15,000 in student loans left over. Paid off some credit cards, paid off a car, and then we had about maybe 15 grand left over. And so we took those proceeds and used that as a down payment on our first non-owner occupied single family, as well as our first duplex. And we just kind of continued like rolling from there.
How did you guys decide who was going to do what in the ownership sphere? Were you the property manager and the maintenance person and all that, or did you kind of like wear different hats with your wife?
So later on down the road, it kind of transitioned out, and she became less involved. But in the beginning, like luckily, I mean, we didn't have kids yet, so we were well rested and not sleep deprived, and we had all the time in the world, and so we were rehabbing properties. Like, man, this this first property, like I've got to send you this picture. We were renovating the bathroom, and quite literally, like the floorboards were so shit stained and just like moldy that I fell through the floor joists because it was so like decayed. It was horrible. So yeah, I'll send you some pictures. It's beautiful.
Yes, please do. I love that. Okay, rentals to flips. How did that happen and why?
Yes. So when we started, the goal was $10,000 a month. That was like the holy grail. Like, okay, we're going to get enough rentals, quit my job, do that whole thing. And we got there. We scaled up to around 40, 45 units. So like a decent sized portfolio, but not massive by any means. And one day I remember kind of like stepping back and looking, and I was like, oh, we hit our goal. Like I was looking at our QuickBooks, and it was like $12,000 a month net. And instead of like feeling happy and like I had climbed Mount Everest and like I accomplished this goal, I kind of just like felt sick to my stomach. I was like, ugh, like this is not really what I want to do. This is kind of gross. And so we decided to, well, and let me back up just a little bit. To get to those 45 units, we had started flipping on the side just a little bit because we had ran out of cash. And so we didn't have enough money for down payment. So we would like do a house here or there, sell it, take those proceeds, buy another rental, and then kind of keep doing that to scale up. And so when I had that kind of realization that this is not really what I want to do, I don't enjoy being a landlord, that's when we pivoted over to doing the flips full time, just because A, they were more profitable, B, they were more fun, C, there were no like tenants in them, and D, my wife was enjoying them too. She would get more involved in the design aspect and the accent walls and the paint colors and wallpaper and all that stuff. And so she felt a little bit more involved in the business again. And so yeah, we kind of did that for the next 6 or 7 years, and we did around 75 to 80 flips over that time.
Okay, so new investors I work with are always like, oh, I'm going to do a flip or two. In my conversation generally with those, like, are you prepared for the tax burden that you're about to, incur? But yeah, I find that if somebody's doing this as a business, kind of like, you and Owen, when you're doing 20, 30, 40 of them, you got enough write-offs with those renovations in most cases, right, to offset that?
Well, yes, but I mean, you're talking about net profit.
Yes.
So I liken that to if you have a W-2 job and it's high income. So let's say you have a $250,000, $300,000 job, something like that, like Bryce probably did working for the government. It results in a variable tax rate, right? So the more you make, the more taxes you're going to pay. It's not like somebody's going to be like, hey, should I not take this $300,000 job because I'm going to have to pay taxes? Like, that's my counter argument to that. It's like, let's say you had 0 rental properties or zero ways to offset the income from a tax perspective. You're going to have to pay it. Yes, that sucks, but you're still making a crap ton of money.
I totally agree with you. And I'm bringing this up for the fact that more people listening, getting into flips for the first time, are not prepared for they're not putting that money away for the taxes. And so that's usually the biggest shocker to a rookie getting into this is like the amount of taxes they're going to have to pay out. But if you're making this a business, I think you can plan more appropriately. You're holding certain properties and you're documenting all your receipts so you can get those extra write-offs, and you're hiring better accountants. But if you're just doing 1 or 2, if you're listening to this, just, consult with somebody that probably like a Bryce or Owen or somebody that's done this, and probably get some advice from them before you just jump in, because you might get a little bit of a shock.
Would you agree with that, Bryce?
Yeah, absolutely. And I would say too, like I have the same feeling that you mentioned, Owen. Like, say you're walking down the street and you find a $10 bill on the ground. Are you not going to pick it up just because you have to give $3 of that to the government? Exactly. No, of course not. Like, you still will, but it's not as tax efficient, and it sometimes does come as a shock at the end of the year when you're like, oh shit, I did not realize I was going to have to pay all this. If you're ignorant to the process and haven't planned for it, there are ways to write things off, but it's definitely a lot more difficult than, the tax efficiency of owning rentals or something else.
Yeah, and I think it's the difference between somebody going into it, like testing the waters by dipping their toe into, flipping. They say, okay, want to flip a house. And it's like, because it's a hobby at that point, right? So if somebody does like, one or two because they really like the idea of it and they think it's going to be fun to pick out paint colors and furnishings.
Those are the masterclass.
What do you mean?
I mean, those are the learning lessons that set you up to if you're going to move forward with it or not. I mean, you have to get those first couple ones, and you got to dip your toes in.
Sure. I what I'm saying is, though, if somebody's in that camp where they're just like, I just want to do one or two to like, so I can say I've done it and show my friends and make hopefully some extra money. Nobody is withholding from your paycheck the FICA and self-employment tax and like all the things that you have to worry about if you're operating an actual flipping business, right? So I could see your point where they're just, they're making this money. They get a check from the title company after they sell their flip. And let's say it's 20 grand or 30 grand or whatever the number is. They're not like, oh man, I better carve this out and set aside, 15 grand or 10 or whatever it is in a savings account to pay it when taxes are due. They're just like, oh my gosh, this is great. Where I'm going with this is it's poor planning. Right? They're not researching it like an actual business. It's not like you're just going to open a hardware store with no freaking plan of where it's going to go, how you're going to pay for things and payroll, and you got to research a lot of stuff on this. And I'm actually this was actually a topic I wanted to bring up too on our real estate rundown on Monday, so stay tuned.
Well, it would be stay tuned. It already aired.
Enjoy it because it's already aired. Like I said.
Well, so on that point, a lot of people think that so rentals, I agree, are more tax efficient, but also I don't care. Like A, I don't want to deal with it, but B, a lot of times, unless you do something fancy with cost segregation or whatever, like people are like, well, think about the depreciation. You still have to pay that back unless you defer for like literally your entire life. You're just going to have to pay it at the end. Like the IRS is going to get their money regardless. So I don't even really see depreciation as that big of a selling point anymore anyway. I don't really care.
Yeah, interesting. We actually just had that cost segregation king on who was talking about some of this, and we didn't get really much into 1031 exchanges or that. But by the way, none of us on this podcast are tax professionals, so consult with your
disclaimer
your
there.
CPA. Yeah.
What would we do without Owen to say that every episode?
I've learned just from listening to other podcasts that they always do that either at the beginning or the end. So I'm just throwing that.
Somebody's getting sued somewhere.
I think anybody that's listened to one episode of ours understands that we are clearly not experts on anything.
Maybe so. I think we just need to run credits.
Take advice at your own peril.
Maybe we just need to run credits at the end. We'll have our lawyers draw something up. We'll record it and put it at the end of every episode.
And talk really fast.
Yes.
Yeah. There we go. Okay. Aiden's going to work on that. Okay. So flipping. So you mentioned that you went from rentals to flipping. I had and you and I talked about this. I kind of had not really the opposite approach, but I didn't have any cash to buy rentals. So I flipped originally so that I could buy some. And it sounds like you kind of started doing that midstream where you ran out of money and then flipped to make more money to buy more rentals. Did you end up selling off all of those? Or what did that look like, the rental properties that you had accumulated? You said 45, right?
Yeah. So 45 different units. When we were still actively flipping, we kind of still held on to most of them until we decided to move into the next piece of lending. And then I realized, this is very capital intensive. I don't have any capital, but I do have all this equity over here in the rentals. And so we did liquidate everything. And we are actually down to our last duplex. It was supposed to close last week, but then the deal fell apart. And anyway, it's back up on the market. So that was kind of a shitty situation. But we did end up liquidating everything. And coming back to taxes, that was a hefty tax bill that we had to pay. But again, I don't regret it. It was worth it.
That's hefty tax bill. Okay, so flipping all of those houses, you mentioned we a couple of times. Is we you and your wife, or is there another partner you have in the mix? Yeah,
so not another partner. I say we because I've just, I think, been trained by my wife now that like we are a unit together as a whole. And
my wife does get very upset when I say my properties and not our properties. Does your wife get upset when you say it?
No, it's the whole thing. It's like
she always gives me the stank eye.
like our money is her money, and or what's the saying there? It's like your money is our money, and our money is my money. Or
Exactly.
Anyway, we're all married here, except for Aiden. Maybe someday, buddy. Keep wearing that Santa hat.
Aiden did have my wife as a school teacher.
So I was laughing. This is true, Bryce. I was kind of laughing at because you graduated in 2010, right? And I'm like 1983. Right. Ted's 1956,
98.
And so I was like, man, I can't. It's just weird when people are born after 2000 or went to high school after 2000 for me as an old guy. But we were laughing about that, and Aiden's like, I graduated in 2020, and I'm like. You don't have to do that, okay? You don't have to be mean about it. But then he had Ted's wife as his teacher when he was in high school. This is hilarious.
Middle school.
Oh, sorry, middle school.
But
that's even worse.
Hey, if it makes you feel better, Aiden could pass probably for like 35 or 40.
That's true. He has a lot of city miles.
He's got all that scraggly hair and a big old beard. He does not look 23.
All right, enough about Aiden. Even though he does make a mean old fashioned. 7.5 stars.
He gave me the finger, dude.
Okay. All right. 70 house flips. The long twisting road to hard money lending. How did that happen? You had all these flips going on. You sold off a bunch of rentals. Why did you even decide to get into lending people money?
Yes. So we had one project in particular. This was like during COVID timeframe. It was going to be a killer flip. Like we were estimated to make probably $85,000 to $90,000 profit. Like it was going to just a home run slam dunk deal. Anyway, just about everything that could have gone wrong with that project did go wrong. I mean, we got sued. We had a JV partner on it that sued us on that. We had a painter who stole 10 grand from us, and he had, anyway, that's a long story. But anyway, by the end of this whole project, we basically broke even. I think we made around $1,200, and it took 14 months to sell. Like there were supply shortages and contractor issues, and it was just like the project from hell. After 14 months, we finally sold this project. We made $1,200. I remember looking at the settlement statement, and our lender on it made $25,000. And that was like the light bulb moment for me. I was like, are you kidding me? Like I had all these like sleepless nights and hours of agony on this project. And I don't think my lender even had any clue what was going on. He probably slept great, had no idea. So when he made 25 times what we did, that's when I was like, okay, I gotta look more into this. So
was he your first call when you were thinking about like learning more about it, how he did
Absolutely.
it?
Absolutely. We probably aggregate borrowed $10 million from this guy over all the different projects that we did, and then I don't know why I never connected the dots or why I never like thought more of it. Mostly probably, I think people are, obviously myself included, people are intimidated by the amount of capital that it requires to do. And obviously you and I know there's other ways to get around that now, but I didn't even connect the dots. So when we did start to transition, I was like, yeah, he was the first person I called. How do you do this? How do you do this? What are the docs like? How do you set this up? How do you structure this? All the above.
That is so interesting. And was he a local guy then? Like, how did you find a hard money lender when you're operating a flipping operation where you're doing 70, 80 homes and you said, I want to do 70, 80 homes. Like I've got a limited amount of capital. I can't do more than, a few at a time. How do I get this done? What was the process for you like to find?
Yeah, for me, I mean, it obviously just word of mouth, like we were in a smallish town, like 80,000 ish population. And so I knew most of the other flippers. I knew most of the other investors in town. And so really just word of mouth, just say, hey, who do you use as a lender? I think we had done probably 6 flips on our own before I didn't even know what hard money was. Like, again, I was just a Mormon and didn't know anything about flipping or Ted's gonna lose it. He's about to just stand up and walk away.
Oh, this is so awesome.
Just a Mormon.
Anyway, so I didn't know what I didn't know, so just word of mouth. There was a guy's like, hey, this is who I use. He was actually based out of Salt Lake. We were in Idaho Falls, so about 3 hours south of us. But yeah, we just called him and he could tell that we had some experience under our belt. And so he gave us a shot. And then obviously, we didn't do 70, 80 projects all at once, but over 5-6 years, they add up.
The fact that you eventually came to the conclusion that you like lending money, it can be really profitable by going through a huge rehab on your own, and then making very minimal, if any, profit. How did you start with funding that? Like what was your first loan like? Maybe that's a good conversation to have.
Yeah. So the first one, we had finished up a couple of projects, and we had probably $250,000 or $300,000 just kind of sitting on the sidelines, waiting for the next project to pop up. And so I had a flipper friend of mine who was like, "I've got this project. Do you have any interest in funding it?" And so I said, "Sure, let's do it." So it was like a 5-month project from start to payoff. I can't even remember what I charged. It wasn't luckily it wasn't $1 million loan like Owen did, but
like my first one.
And to make what did you make? $1,500? Yeah. So we were smarter than that. I think after 5 months it paid off, and we made like $6,000 to $8,000, and it was great. It was like mailbox money. It was passive. It was easy. And that's just kind of how it started.
This episode is brought to you by Timber Creek Virtual.
At Timber Creek Virtual, we don't just keep your business running. We take it to the next level. Our virtual and executive assistants handle all the everyday tasks so you can focus on what really matters, growing your business. Need clarity on your financial performance? Our expert bookkeeping services keep everything organized so you always know where your business stands. With our seamless transaction coordination, you never have to worry about the details. Just close the deal. We've got you covered with cutting-edge digital marketing, proactive lead generation, and expert acquisition management. Plus, we handle the cold calling and messaging too. Let us handle the big C part so you can handle your business. Visit timbercreekvirtual.com/services and see how we can make your business soar.
Let's peel back the layers of technology here and talk about something fun, which is starting a software product. Fun for nerds, not me or Ted.
Guilty.
How did that all come about? And by the way, I did notice that you had a sysadmin background. So you're a system administrator, which is not the same as a software developer. What was the deal with that? You went to school for IT, which I assume covers a wide berth of different aspects of technology, but why were you sysadmin and then you got into development?
Yeah, like very good question. So I have been in the tech space since I was like legitimately probably 9 years old. I was fixing neighbors' computers and all, just from I bought my first computer off eBay for $45, at 9 years old. So I've always known that I was going to go right. Not as wealthy as Steve, but so I've just always known what I was going to do, what I was going to go to school for. Always tinkered with computers and whatever. So I've been building websites since I was like 15. Originally, I had a kind of a deeper passion for the hardware side, and so it was more like the sysadmin stuff where I got to tinker with the servers and get really hands on with all the everything. So the software development is all self-taught, and I've kind of dabbled with that here and there, but I really got serious about it probably around 6-ish years ago. So this is actually our third software company. I had one successful software exit. I built a tool called Rentastic and sold that for mid 6 figures. And that was essentially like a QuickBooks clone, but for like small mom and pop landlords. I've also got a dividend stock platform called the Dividend Tracker. If you're interested in investing in stock market, which is boring, who does that? And then now the lending software.
Okay. Chicken or the egg here. Did you start the lending software after you decided to do hard money? And what did you discover when you were entering the hard money lending space? Was there just like a lack of product that would do what you wanted to be able to manage the business?
Yeah. So the lending software definitely came after I started lending. I looked at some of the existing software that was already out there, and holy shit, is it a nightmare? It is like, so some of the software.
I concur.
Yeah, it's hot garbage. I mean, there's some software that there's one company in particular that's been around since like the 70s, and they used to be like, the software would come on a CD.
I actually remember the 5 1/4-inch floppy disks.
Oh, ditto. Yeah, I'm with you. Yeah. So
with the Oregon Trail on it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
You have died of dysentery.
I played that in second grade. Oh, and you were graduating high school, but it's fine.
My wife, just so you know, is an 8th grade history teacher. She still does Oregon Trail with the kids, but
I'm jealous.
And it's like it is not on a floppy anymore. Just so you know,
boring.
Yeah.
Boring. So anyway, yeah. So this company's been around for ages. You used to like install it on your computer with a disk, and anyway, so they're slowly getting there. They're kind of like now have a web interface, but it's kind of janky. So I didn't really like that. I'm also really big on like pretty UIs. Like it has to be attractive, otherwise I don't want to use it. So I know that's not a huge prerequisite for a lot of people, but it has to be pretty or I'm not going to use it. So what happened really was I didn't like the existing software out there. It was janky, it was old, it was ugly, it didn't really do what I wanted to do. How it really started was I was busy generating, and I think Owen, I've shared this with you, but I was busy generating like my loan docs just by hand. So I was going into Word and I was like, okay, find the borrower's entity and copy and paste, and I would like send these documents over to the title company, and they'd all be messed up. Like, who is this borrower? And I'm like, oh shoot, that was from the previous loan that I did. And I anyway, so I was like, I've got to have a better system. So having a tech background, I made like a janky little tool that just did like a quick, like a mail merge if you're old, that goes in and just copies and replaces everything. And then I had a friend who was also in the lending space. He was like, hey, can I borrow that? That sounds really handy. And then I was like, sure, yeah, go ahead and use it. And then he's like, hey, well, what about this? Can I do this? And I was like, well, no, but I can build that. And so it slowly just kind of morphed into this full on like lending suite where now you have borrower portals and lender portals, and it tracks all the investments and does monthly reports and collects payments. And it's just kind of grown into the full tool that it is now.
So you didn't go into this originally. You weren't like, I'm going to start a software company for the purpose of like going really big and capturing a huge market share and then maybe selling it. Is that the end game for you? Or like,
yeah, I mean, so having sold some other software companies, I think knowing what I know now, this is very much like my long play. Like I see myself doing this for the next 10, 15, 20 years. But eventually, yeah, I'd love to sell it and cash out at some point, but that's still, in the very distant future.
This is just so fascinating to me because you're building something. It's like you're building your own parachute. Because you need
midair,
tools.
mind you.
Yeah, you need some things to help you run your business. And you're like, I've looked at the marketplace that exists right now, and it's not meeting my needs. So I'm going to build something that meets my needs. And now you have it. Now other people are like, hey, I like that. What is that? Can I borrow it? Can I use it? What can I pay you for it? This seems like this could be pretty huge. I mean, this seems like something that you could go in a whole different bunch of. And maybe this is a good spot to ask you, in the software world, how dangerous is it to have shiny object syndrome? Like, are you tempted to go down rabbit holes of trying to add on different product lines or different verticals that this could work for? And how do you eliminate how do you keep your tunnel vision that is making you successful?
Yes. So a lot of different thoughts here, but the biggest thing is, like you mentioned earlier on my resume, like I did like jump around all over the place, and it very much is like, ooh, this is a cool idea. Let's chase this. And I think in the beginning, that's very good. The hard part is, let's say you're working a W-2 job, and then you become an entrepreneur and you start this thing. You're rewarded with that dopamine hit or financially or whatever it is by taking that leap. Now the problem is, as an entrepreneur, you want that dopamine hit again. And so it is very tempting to jump around and do the next thing. The problem is then you do lose the focus and you never grow this one thing to be really big. And so we can kind of touch on that later as the falling forward section. But basically what I'm getting at is, my mantra right now is, unless it's a hell yes, it's a no. So every opportunity that comes my way, unless it's a hell yes, that's amazing, it's a no. And so there's a lot of opportunities that are really cool, but I have to say no, because otherwise I'm saying no to this really big thing that I know will be huge 10 years in the future.
Bryce, in regards to your software, who's your biggest competition out there? And what do you think differentiates you from them? I mean, is it like, hey, this person's product is better, but mine is very close and it's lower cost, or my product is better than theirs and is lower cost, or I have the same product as my competition and I'm growing faster than them. Like what's the differentiator between you and the, your 2 or 3 biggest competitors?
Sure. Yeah. So the main competitors right now are called the Mortgage Office. There's also another one called Mortgage Automator. The Mortgage Office was that company I was talking about from the 70s. They originally they still cater to pretty much anyone and everyone. And I think that's to their demise. I think they cater to traditional mortgage lenders. They cater to this massive breadth of pretty much anyone and everyone. And they're a Swiss Army knife for anyone in the mortgage industry. So I was talking to a friend who's using Mortgage Automator, and he said, no joke, it took me 6 1-hour training sessions with the company just to get my business set up. And I think that's insane. So because they cater to everyone, they cater to no one. And so I think that's a negative.
Man, you were dropping so many quotable things here. I love it.
To follow that up though, real quick, I'm sorry, but you have a hard money lending company. And so why would somebody like, his lending company or another hard money lender in town choose you guys?
Yeah. So biggest thing is we are specifically for hard and private money. That is it. That's all we focus on. That's the only thing we focus on. We are not a Swiss Army knife. We don't have all of these crazy, and it's designed to be stupid simple. A lot of lenders that I talk to, they don't want to spend 6 hours on the phone just to get the basics of their business up and running. And we understand the private lending business inside and out, like the back of our hands. And so somebody can come with us. They say, this is how we run our business. Great. Let me make a couple clicks on our back end just to make sure that everything's set up, and you'll be online and ready to go in probably half an hour. So it's very simple.
Now, Bryce, I'm not in this part of the industry, but if I was researching, I'm doing Google searching, and I'm really looking at this, I'm looking at you. You're out of Idaho. You're a small team, but I'm guessing there's probably some serious money in this industry that with some major software out there. And online, are you guys doing anything to kind of set yourself apart? Because to say, hey, we might be a smaller company, but we're the right decision for you. And I know that I'm asking probably a lot of questions on here, but any one of us that are more independent and trying to get this going, we have smaller marketing budgets, right? And we got to show our value in different ways. So how are you guys doing that in your advertising?
Yeah. So the biggest thing, and I promise my goal is not to kind of shit on these other companies, but
I just want truth. I don't care if you shit on them.
Yeah. So I have spoken to customers of both companies, and they say, all we want is this one feature. And we have requested this feature, and we've been requesting it for 6 months, and it hasn't been developed. It hasn't come out yet. I have customers who request features all day long, every day. And kind of my claim to fame, or the thing that we offer is just me, myself, and I. I don't have any red tape. I don't have to take this back to a community. I don't have to get approval. If it's a good idea, I'll develop it. And more than likely, it'll be out in a week or 2 tops, as opposed to 6 months. So as long as it's within the scope of private lending and it's something that all of our customers can benefit from, sure, I'll be happy to build it. And it's going to take me a week.
It's not like working with AppFolio where you have something to suggest them. And we'll take that to review, and maybe in a year we'll decide to do that.
Yeah, maybe.
I actually love that, man. I don't think you could have home run that answer any better, to be honest with you. You have a hard money lending company. Is there certain things that you're looking for in your software that I don't know what you guys use? But...
Well, since it's Christmas Day, I'm going to give Bryce a gift here. This is an unpaid testimonial for his platform. So LENDR is lender in the millennial spelling, is the product, right? So he has this software product, and Bryce, is this commercially available now, or are you kind of still in beta? Because when we first started talking, you were where are you at right now in the production cycle?
Yeah. So when you and I originally talked a couple months ago, we had launched in June. And I think we probably chatted in maybe July, August.
Yeah.
And so it was basically in beta, but over the last 6 months, and kind of going back to how I said before, a lot of things have grown and changed. We're way more stable now. We've got a lot more features. A lot of kind of the main kinks are worked out. And so, we're very much actively selling and promoting and growing.
So I'll tell you kind of what I went through when we started our hard money business. So we we were looking for software that would help document management, creating loan docs and not having to do it on Microsoft Word or templates or whatever on there. It was just very cumbersome to have to recreate those every time. And I will tell you that I made the same mistake where I used something that I'd used before and I just changed the thing, and I forgot to change other parts of the documents or whatever, and something got screwed up. So it's like, and that's not a small deal either.
That's a big no-no. Yeah.
Yes. If you do that, I mean, we're talking like there's major risk there. So these are very important, these are loan documents. So they're very important. But not just that, it's managing the whole, as you start, you're like, whatever, you use, popsicles, sticks, and Band-Aids to hold everything together. And then it's like, Google Sheets, and like, that's how we've lived for a long time. But we bought this subscription agreement to a product called Loan Pro, which are you familiar with that, Bryce, much?
I've heard of them, not interface with them as much.
So we used them for a year. And they had a pretty high price tag for what we needed it for. And we were paying, it ended up being, let's call it, we had to pay X amount up front. And then it was like, $1,000 a month or something like that we paid. Never used it. Never.
Really?
We paid an entire year plus the initiation fee. And the reason being is it needed so much customization for what we were doing that the additional config and development costs were going to be prohibitive enough to where we were like, well, and then we were going to have to pay to like import all of our data and do reporting out of it. That's the stuff that's really valuable after you've been in business for a while, especially. Like you can pull data and figure out, trends and like what's working and what's not, and make decisions based on, it's basically decision support. You have data to support the decisions you're making, and it's really valuable, especially the longer you go into it, the more valuable the data is. And part of the problem too was, like, to your point earlier when you were mentioning you're the guy, right? There's so little red tape, and you can have production done on a config change or an update in like a week or 2 weeks or whatever it is. This was like pulling teeth to get somebody to just answer the phone or set an appointment for support. Like, we're having problems with a login or like just the user interface. You were talking about UI earlier. So user interface is basically your experience as the user of a software program. And it was just not good and clunky. And then every time we tried to get support, and by the way, I hope I don't get sued for this. This was just our experience of using a software product. I'm not saying it's going to be your experience, but we just found that it wasn't a great fit for us. And when we tried to get support, they're like, oh yeah, you've used your 3 hours of support or 5 or 6 or whatever it was. We're like, yeah, but that didn't really do anything. We hadn't even started using it yet. We were just like getting trained. And then they're like, yeah, it's going to be X number of hundreds of dollars to get another hour of support. And we're like, well, this is dumb. And so we just punted and went back to Google Sheets. And then
hindsight, if they would have done you right and got it done, they would have had a customer for a long
Yes,
time.
yeah, absolutely. Because change is hard.
Fix
by the
your
way.
shit, people.
And this is kind of like part of my point to this is change is really hard, especially with technology. You have people that are invested for life. That's why brand marketers target babies. Like, they want you to love their brand from birth, right, onward, because they know that you have a lifetime income stream that you're going to be, shelling out to their company. And it's smart, but it's a fact, because change is super hard, especially moving all your tech over. It's so painful.
I'm dealing with that with a different scale. I use OwnerRez. I'm trying to use OwnerRez for my Airbnbs, and that site is the most difficult site I've ever used. And it's like, oh, every consultation now is $100, and I'm like, I don't have $100 for every consultation. I just like, oh, or you can just pay the $600 and we'll do it all for you. But then I learned nothing.
Yeah. So, to kind of tie this together, so I'm gonna give the origin story on why we're talking right now, Bryce. So I alluded to this, probably 15, 20 podcasts ago about like the world of Reddit. So the social media platform Reddit, REDDIT.com. There's literally anything in the world that you are interested in. There's probably a subreddit thread for that. And basically it's a discussion forum where people can like either really dive into nerdy topics, or maybe they're just talking about a city, or maybe they're talking about real estate or hard money or whatever. And I just went in and searched for hard money. and a thread of yours popped up, and I just started participating. Like I was just like, okay, like this seems like an interesting conversation, and so I just started participating, and we had a couple of back and forths of just comments on our posts, and then we took it offline. Like, you know, like we private messaged each other, and like I found out that you were in the hard money business too. You had recently started, and then so I just kind of told you what we did, and then you shared, and you're like, this is awesome, and you're like, by the way, I have some software, and I was like, what's that like? And so this kind of led to in real life conversation, and then, you know, it turns out he's got a podcast. We have a podcast, like, so that's the origin story here. So
it's really cool.
The vague reference of a mysterious Redditor out there, that's Bryce. That I met like a few months back. So this has been super cool to see how this.
Well, I'm honored.
He's been fanboying you forever, bud.
But no, I would just say so. So having the struggle of going through a failed software purchase or a subscription purchase, and really realizing what we actually needed, I can tell you that I really appreciate the fact that there is such a little amount of red tape. And you're responsive, and you have a vested interest in your own product. So it's not like you're developing software for the sake of developing software and then selling it commercially. I mean, maybe that's part of it. Of course, anybody would. But you're actually in the business of lending hard money, and you have a real estate background. So that's what I really liked about you, because you understand investment real estate from both a transactional perspective and an income and like managing rental properties and all that. Like, you've been through a lot of the stuff. A lot of companies out there that service industries that maybe the people that work in that software company never have any experience in. So I think that's the disconnect a lot of times. And then you'll get people out there that are operating in this world. So like, let's say you're a real estate investor and you're looking for a product that services your need. Like, you want somebody that understands you. You're not going to call tech support. And now, granted, this may age badly because you may grow this thing to be explosive, and you may have to hire a lot of staff, and maybe they're going to be a little bit more removed from the day-to-day real estate world. But as it sits right now, I love the fact, and by the way, I've been personally through a couple of software demos that you've done. I'm going to save the feedback here for a later date, because this was actually this week, like 2 days ago. My whole team with the Liquid Lending, we were all in a software demo call with Bryce, and he and his guy, help
Quinn.
me. Thank you, Quinn. They walked us through the whole thing, and I love the user interface, and that is not a small thing. And there's probably bored people on here right now with listening to this, but
I'm very interested. You can keep going.
Drag and drop a lot of things, but you can build basically what you're trying to do on the fly, and it's very user friendly. So I loved that interaction and the ability to work with it, and the fact that you are a small team, and being an entrepreneur, you appreciate other entrepreneurs that are trying to make it work. And I know your heart's in this because you have a vested interest. So I'm just saying, like, anybody out there catching this is like, oh, I'm in hard money, I make some loans, but I really want to kind of grow the business. Check out Lender, Lendr. And Bryce, also we haven't talked about the podcast yet, but I've been rambling.
We'll get that in OT.
Yeah. But anyway, that's my long-winded diatribe of a testimonial for you.
Owen's very long-winded. I'm sorry, Bryce.
No, you're welcome.
That's the biggest compliment I think I could have ever received. So that is an amazing Christmas gift. Seriously, thank you. No, that's very kind of you. And
it's the season, Bryce.
It is the season.
Merry Christmas.
I'm sorry about that.
But no, that's wow. Thank you. No, and we pride ourselves on that. Like, we don't have a call center in India. Like, you call the phone number and you get me, so like, I can't even say that with our local REIA. You call us, you get John to the Philippines.
Nope.
John, shout out to you for doing the podcast.
So very, very kind. But yeah, thank you. Oh, and that means the world.
Yeah, absolutely. And so anyway, don't sleep on Reddit. We have neglected, since Ted reminded me earlier, to talk about maybe something that hasn't gone as well in your investing, business, personal life, career, etc. In a section that we call
Failing Forward.
I don't know why you decide to do the weird
I was
Like
we always
you
sing
gotta
it.
you gotta stay on beat, man.
We always
Like,
think maybe
yeah, but I don't know what you're doing. That's the whole thing. It's a duet. It's a duet.
Let's duet it.
It's not the TED
Okay,
show.
show it to me.
It's the usual.
Do it.
All right, 1, 2, 3.
Failing forward.
This Failing Forward is brought to you by Magic Door.
Magic Door is the AI-powered property management platform designed to handle everything from the rent cycle to the vacancy and maintenance cycles. During the rent cycle, Magic Door collects rent, sends automatic reminders, deducts management fees, and distributes payments to owners. In the vacancy cycle, Magic Door streamlines listings, tenant applications, seamless multi-language communication, screening tenants, and converting applications into leases with one click. And for the maintenance cycle, Magic Door's AI handles everything, asking tenants key questions, assigning tasks to vendors, and scheduling repairs automatically without you getting involved. With no hidden fees, no onboarding costs, and seamless AI-powered automation, Magic Door takes care of the entire property management lifecycle so you can focus on what matters most.
There you go. That's pretty good. I like that. It sounds like you're like singing like Christmas carols.
Little pitchy. But anyway.
Jingle bell, jingle
No,
bell,
stop.
jingle
No,
bell rock.
nobody wants to hear any of this.
It's the holidays. Everybody wants to hear this today.
Okay.
People aren't hanging out with their families right now. They're listening to REIA Radio podcasts, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, how much longer do I got to stay here?" And they're blowing their head out. Yes.
Okay.
This is
back to our regularly scheduled programming here. Bryce, what have you failed miserably in? Everyone wants to hear about it.
We had, so this is actually the same property that we mentioned earlier, which kind of was like the catalyst into our lending journey. So this project, we had used the same painter for probably 5 or 6 different projects, and everything went really well. And so he asked for a larger chunk of money up front, and we gave him 10 grand. And I trusted him. I really did, because he had done so many projects for us. Quite literally, he disappeared and spent it on meth.
Oh. Okay, so
that was a fail. That stung. And to my better judgment, and like I had done this before, like I had done draws and, with dozens of other contractors, but for whatever reason, I was like, yeah, like he's good for it. He was not good for it. He spent it on drugs.
I'm gonna be really vague with this. Okay, so I've had projects where I've known that the subcontractors are either on alcohol or drugs, and I also know they did good work. So I was kind of stuck. So I did quarterly payments. I'm like, hey, I will get, and if someone required some money up front. So I'm like, yeah, okay, so I will pay you 10% up front. And then when you get past this particular project level, I'll pay you 25%, and then I'll pay the remaining 25% and the remaining 25%. And I won't pay the final 25% until everything's all done.
You're at 115%, by the way.
Yeah, by the way.
No. The first, I didn't pay the full. I paid 10% of the 25% payment. So like 10%, and then the upfront, and then the 15%, and then 25. Shut up. And I knew that I had good people I was working with. I knew they could do the job. I know that they had their own demons. But in the same aspect, I was very aware of what was going on in their lives. So I made sure that I create levels. And that was how I controlled dealing with that situation. Most subs have an issue. I'm not going to lie. And I'm sorry about the subs listening that don't have an issue. Good for you. You should actually promote it. But most of them do.
Yeah, give me your number, because all the subs out there typically do have an issue. But the funny thing is, like, I knew that already. Like, I had done draws and payments and stuff like that all the time, but I was just a moron, and I just didn't.
Dude,
yeah.
I talked about it in Monday's episode, but I just did a renovation on a duplex, and I had a business partner completely flake out of me, and we're like negative like $65,000 in a flip that we should have been in absolute home run. It was me not supervising it. I mean, there's only so much you can do, right? You can't control every aspect, and sometimes you got to put trust in people, so that, especially if you're investors like us that have multiple things going on. I'm not to either your caliber, but I do have 5 different businesses that I'm supervising, and you can't control everything. Sometimes you got to put trust in somebody to do the right thing, and you're going to get screwed at some point in that process. I hate to say it. Am I wrong? I mean, you sometimes you have to trust people. And if they've done jobs for you in the past, or you personally know them, you like to think that they're going to do you right.
I don't know. I mean, I can't poke holes in your decision making.
I can't either.
Process that you went through, Bryce, because like I've done exactly the same thing. And have I had somebody skate on me with 10 grand? No, I haven't, but maybe I've gotten lucky because life changes really fast. So somebody like maybe you had your guy and he was solid and did good work. Maybe he was on the wagon like that whole time and you didn't know it because he's not going to share that with random people. You know, he's like, why would you tell why would you tell somebody that's
your
writing
employer?
your text
Yeah, absolutely.
that you used to be a drug addict? So maybe he was just on the wagon the whole time, and then all of a sudden life situation happened. Maybe he had a fight with his wife or just, you know, whatever, something went bad, and then he just fell off the wagon and he's like, you know what, here's 10 grand. I know this is gonna suck, but I need to get high or whatever it is, right? Yeah. So like that stuff happens. And I mean, it's the human element. You can't do decision making based on assumptions for the foreseeable future because everything changes. So you operate under the information you have. And if somebody's proven to be trustworthy and reliable, then you have to operate under the assumption they're going to continue doing that. And you're going to get effed on the way. It just happens.
Bryce, I dealt with this stuff. And I literally had a contractor that had some personal stuff going on. And literally was like, you know, he had to relocate his family out of town, stole my money to relocate his family. And then I'm left high and dry on a property. And I had an outsourced contractor, lost, you know, in the end, probably over $100,000.
Oof.
You know, I made that mistake too. So I feel you because like sometimes we just have those trusts in somebody like, hey, you know what? This particular guy, I known for over 20 years. He knew my family. He worked with my mom back when I was like 4 and he did great work for me, but something changed in his life and then he just completely screwed me and walked away. I'm not hating on what you did with dropping that big amount of money because I totally get it. I've had 2 years of just nightmares and mistakes with contractors and I've learned so much and I'm changing everything I'm doing in 2025.
Well, the hard part too is like you want to be a nice person, you know, you want to help people out. And like after they have proven themselves 4, 5, 6, 7 times, you're like, I want to do this guy a solid. And obviously it comes back to kind of bite you in the butt, which is a pain. So
Bryce, after such heated conversation about your failing forward, we do have a section that we do lovingly call the OT with Owen and Ted. You are in the OT with Owen and Ted, presented by JM Real Estate Capital.
Hi, it's Rob, JM Real Estate Capital. We're the money guys that you need to know for all your real estate investments. Talk to us. We can do what your local bank can't or won't do. We don't have millions, we have trillions with a T to lend. 844-WE-CLOSE or go online at jmrecapital.com. That's jmrecapital.com. JM Real Estate Capital, smart solutions for the real estate investor.
There you go. You guys are in sync. Love it.
So in this section, Bryce, we cover the same questions with every guest. And we're going to switch these up a little bit on you because I'm taking over all of them because Ted is being inappropriate to me. The first question for you is, what's going to be the title of your first book, man? And what's it going to be about?
Good question. So I have a note in my phone, and anytime I learn like a big business lesson, not necessarily a failure, but just something that I could do better, or something that I've learned, I just jot it down in my notes. And so I don't have like a good book title, but it would probably be like Business Lessons with Bryce. We'll have to like workshop the title to make it, you know, a New York Times bestseller, but we'll get there.
Business Lessons with Bryce. I like it.
Or maybe Bryce Aroni or Bruce or
yes. Okay.
Whatever we want to make it fun.
Okay. Next question for you is, if you could interview anyone in the world today, alive or dead, who would it be and what would be the question you would ask them?
I've got 2. I don't know. I'm sure people have said this before, but number 1, Warren Buffett. Easy. I mean, the dude is the GOAT.
You know he's here in Omaha, right?
I did know that.
You come visit. So we'll take you by his house.
Okay, yeah. If you've got the hookup, you let me know. And then number 2 is Steve Jobs, who we mentioned, you know, already because he's
dead.
He.
I'm sorry.
He is indeed
alive.
Dead.
Bryce, it was not
alive or dead.
No, I said specifically alive. Jeez, do you even listen?
That's not the question that's supposed to be asked. So if you're going to ask my questions, ask them right.
Owen said alive or dead, so I did one of each.
And you sat there silent.
Bryce is supposed to be alive, and so we'll take your Steve Jobs for this.
So you know what, you and Owen get on the same page, and then come back to me and ask me the right question.
We're on the same page, trust me.
I don't know that we are. Thank you. Anyway, Steve Jobs, what would you ask him? My God,
I wish he would have been better at documenting like his early stages. You know, like when he got kicked out and went to, you know, started Pixar and kind of this other stuff. Like I would really like to hear kind of the intricate details of how that happened and evolved. I think that'd be really interesting.
Man, that guy is a case study in awkwardness translated into business success.
Yes.
So, I don't know what his, this is kind of catching me flat-footed here, but I don't know what his mental health history is, but I would guess he has he's so focused and narrowly, like his whole life is mapped out, and he's like, this is the way. Right. It just seems like that, at least from consumers. And like he wore the same outfit every day so that he could optimize his decision-making time and all that. It'd be fascinating to sit down with that guy. And he was kind of a dick. Like,
yeah. Oh, absolutely. He's a straight asshole. Absolutely.
Yeah. To a lot of people, but he changed the world. Like arguably technology wise more than a lot of people have ever done in their lives. Like
iPhones have sucked since Steve Jobs died. Let's just get real about it. Nothing's changed. It's been the same flipping iPhone of forever. Fix your iPhones because nothing's exciting now.
You know what I have?
Yeah, it's something that's super not exciting.
Oh, it's a Samsung. Yeah,
and it's ringing.
No, that was weird. Actually, I picked it up. It was anyway, Samsung forever.
You know what's interesting though is like all these icons. Think of Elon, right? Like Elon he's doing crazy things, but like he named his child X. So all these people are like, oh man, I would love to be Elon. I would love to. No, they're f***ing weirdos. Like they really are a bunch of just like they are truly remarkable people. Steve Jobs too, but to be at that level, you truly have to be insane. You have to be so weird and eccentric. I don't know. My opinion. Well, who knows?
Personally, I'm like 2 steps away from like getting a picket sign and going outside of Warren's office and just having a sign that says, "We come on the REIA Radio podcast."
Wow. Okay. Well, that was unexpected.
Should we do it with me?
No,
just one day.
No,
for photo's sake.
Wear your Christmas
for
sweater.
photo's sake, please.
Okay, this is mine. Are you done?
You're just gonna do them all. So
okay.
You said you want to.
All right. Here's the next question for you, Bryce.
Do it.
All right. It's you're at the end of a long life. It is 3010, and
3010.
You have someone 2110, and you are in the box. Somebody's walking up to the mic, unless they're telepathically doing it.
Spit it out, son.
Yeah. You know, for a guy that's not involved in this segment, you sure are saying a lot.
You're sure like gapping us out.
So what's your eulogy going to be like? Who's gonna talk about you? What do you hope they're going to say?
I thought it was OT. Owen and Ted. Is Ted not involved in this whatsoever?
Oh, he decided originally right up front he's going to do all the questions.
Oh, I got excited for a second because I thought we were going to be giving your eulogy.
Oh, no, absolutely not. You're not even going to be anywhere near my funeral. You stay as far away as possible.
All right.
Owen or me or both of us?
Both. You two together are not a good combo. So this is a corny answer probably, but I would hope that like one of my kids would be there and say like, he lived a long, happy life. He served people around him. He was a good guy, all those things. Because here's the thing, like deep down, I'm pretty selfish in the sense that like, I think we all are to some degree, right? It's like my job, my work, my family, my life, my, right? My whole mantra, and this kind of goes back to religion that we talked about before, like before I feel like I had all the answers, like this is what happens when I die. This is where I'm going. This is who I want to be. This is what happens in the afterlife. Now, I don't fucking know, and I don't really fucking care, to be honest. And so I kind of just have like...
This is a Christmas episode, Bryce, and you're dropping a lot of F-bombs for being a Mormon.
Recovering Mormon.
So here's the TLDR. I want to help other people, and I want to not be an asshole. And those kind of go like one and the same, but like really that's my whole life. Like I want to be a good person, and I want to like help people around me. So if I accomplish those things and I do what I enjoy loving in life, great. The end. I'm happy.
Just my insight on this. Bryce, we've been asking this question for 2 years at least now, and even Brandon Turner sold it from us, which is fine. But anyway, long story short, I feel that the answer to this question changes the older you get. If you would have asked 2 years ago, Owen and Ted, this question, we would have said friends and that we want our kids to be up there and saying it. But if you ask me this question right now, I want my best friends of life to go up there and tell the funniest stories that have ever happened in my life, followed by a big ass party with open bar and free drinks. And I want people to take a ton of pictures and say, I had the best experience of my life at Ted's funeral. And I don't think Owen's very far from that.
From being in the box?
No, from that same. I think that you're very similar in that now.
Yeah, I went through. I actually went through this where I had to give a memorial to.
Talk about that last week.
Yeah, my brother-in-law, and that was really hard for me to do. So I think there's a lot of levity at funerals, obviously, but like as you can tell now from being on this podcast, we have very little seriousness on here in general. And so I would like a mix of that. If somebody got up and talked about like why they were in my life and what was a hilarious story, that'd be fun to hear. I think at a funeral and refreshing.
And then Larry the Cable Guy coming in right afterwards and giving a little skit.
No, that's weird. I would also want somebody maybe give something meaningful, like why do you know me, and maybe how did I impact your life in a positive way. If I could have those two things at my funeral, that's where I'm sitting right now.
I'd love to know that 1,000 people showed up, but I had a comedian up front and everybody laughed their ass off and then had a party afterwards. Just to know that enough people showed up, that actually cared would mean the most to me.
Ted, why do you think your answer to that has changed in recent years?
Actually, we went to a friend's dad's funeral, and it was really impactful on me. It filled out room after room after room, and it was overflowed on the outside. So it tells me that gentleman impacted our city, our group the most. They live streamed that. There was hundreds of people on live stream. One of his best friends conducted the whole. There was no priest that did it. Conducted the whole funeral. And I don't think I need a priest to tell me that, I'm going to go to heaven in the end. You know what I mean? It's about the people that's in a room to make them feel good, right? So I'm not saying I don't want my kids to go up. If my kids go up, I want them to tell them a fun story. I want everything to be positive. I don't want tears at my funeral. I want smiles. I want the best memories. I want everybody to sit next to somebody and sit and tell them next to them, this is my story about Ted. And I want Owen to be sitting next to somebody and say, this is my favorite part about Ted, but he's going to already be dead, so it won't matter.
No, but by the way, Bryce, we have a $10,000 bet on who's going to live longer. No kidding. Yeah, legit bet. By the way, I'm not wearing one of those awful sweaters to your funeral, or maybe I will. Stay tuned.
Yeah, so you can wear the T-shirt that you made of me.
Okay. Yes, I will. That's great. Eating a huge burrito.
Yes, you wear the burrito T-shirt if I die first.
All right, let's move on.
But you see my point, though? Like, keep it light and keep it fun.
Yeah, I'm with you.
I don't want dry. I want dry eyes. I want big smiles. I want people to just all be talking about good times that we had together.
So this went from Ted not talking at all to it being all about Ted. So here we are with the second to last question here. Who's impacted your life? So you are a little long in the tooth now at what, 33?
32.
32? Okay.
Ripe old age.
Who do you get advice from? Who's impacted your life in a positive way? And if you get into a struggle spot in life or work or business, who's like on your speed dial?
So again, this might be kind of a corny answer, but I picked this up from somebody, and it's been super impactful. So I think of multiple people who impact me, and what I'll do is like, I kind of envision like this boardroom or conference room type setting. And I'm standing at the head of the table, and seated in all these chairs around me are my parents, people who have influenced me in business, my wife, good friends, just all these like really notable people in my life. And what I'll do is I I will ask a question and I will imagine what their response would be to me. And so any kind of like, whether it's business or relationship or whatever it may be, I'll put myself in this setting and I'll ask that question. And just like, your best friend really well, how they're going to react, how they're going to take you around, they're going to tease you and all these things, but you can put them in that exact setting. You know exactly what they're going to say. And so that for me has been really helpful, because it's not necessarily somebody that I just pick up the phone and actually call, which obviously I can do that. But I like to get the different perspectives of advice from all the different people in my life for that one single scenario. Does that make sense?
Yeah, kind of like more of a board of advisors than a direct or indirect mentorship relationship.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I like that. I have a good friend of mine, or actually a couple of them, that are in the financial planning space, and they have a board of advisors, and they had that ever since they were like, I met them when I was 25, I think, and I'm like, bro, you have a board of advice. You're 25 years old. Like, what are you doing? Who are you trying to be here? And now I get it. Like, I mean, I thought that was probably a little early on to be doing that when you're 25. Like, okay. But now that they're more mature, and the thing is, like, you meet some really smart people and go-getters in your early days. Those are the people that end up being really successful, like either executive level or like business owners or whatever. And it's the collection of relationships that you have in your early days result in really, really successful like surroundings when you're 50 years old, 60 years old, right? Those are the people that move the needle. Everybody's got that friend or two or maybe many that they knew from high school that never moved out of their small town, and there's nothing wrong with that either, but they just kind of like stayed small and in relation to experiences and success in business and growing things and whatever. And there's something for everybody, right? I'm not dogging on that, but I don't know, man. I think the more collective people that you have in your world and the more takes on it that you can get their opinion on, the more it's going to lead to just like a deep, deep relationship with those people over time. So I think that's really cool. We've never had that answer before, actually. So kind of like a board of advisors approach.
Yeah.
All right. My last question for you, Bryce, since I have all of these, is how can our listeners support you? What's important to you right now in your business that somebody catching this episode might be able to connect the dots for you, or anything you're looking for?
Sure. So kind of two main focuses, like we touched on already, is the software. So if you are in the hard lending space, and you're like currently using Excel or Google Sheets or whatever it is, Owen.
No joke.
And if you're looking for a software tool, highly recommend that. That's joinlender.com. I also try to document like my journey and growth through kind of as we excel or go down the road in lending on my own podcast, which is the Lender Podcast. So I'm happy to have some more listeners there. And then I'm pretty active on Instagram, try to be there. So if anybody wants to reach out or whatever, feel free to, it's just at Bryce Matheson, just my first and last name. Like I said, I'm usually in there in the DMs. So feel free to shoot me a message or whatever.
Well, Bryce, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. It's a breath of fresh air when Owen actually refers somebody that's good to come on. And so, Owen, good job.
Oh, Ted's done pouting, evidently. He's back on the mic.
And if you listen to the first time or the 170th time, Merry Christmas, please leave us a review on your favorite podcast format, and follow and share. That's actually the Christmas gift that you could give us right now, right?
Yes.
And we do have a review to read today.
Okay, let's hear it.
From Rookie61. The podcast is a great way to learn, laugh, and experience what others have done to gain expertise as well as mistakes in being an investor of real estate. Ted and Owen are awesome hosts. Thank you, Rookie.
It looks like it just says Owen.
It says Ted Kosh and Owen Dashner. I mean, I can't believe you put Owen's name in there, but it's fine. So thank you for that review. We have plenty more to read over the next couple weeks, so we appreciate that. And so please doing that. And Bryce, thank you so much. One thing I do want to ask is, based on you seeing how we do the podcast, we're really kind of like loose with the tooth. I
Very,
say.
very professional.
Very professional.
Serious.
Is there one person that you would be willing to reach out to that you think would be great on this podcast?
I do. Yeah, I've got actually two people in mind, but yeah, I've got one in the lending space, so I think it'd be a good fit. And
anybody you want to shout out just to give him a little extra pressure?
Yeah, sure. His name is Matt Strong. He's pretty good. He's a hard money lender doing very well. He's got, I don't know, 40-50 million AUM, so he's pretty big in the space, doing really well, and he's a good guy to shoot the shit with, and I think he would appreciate you guys.
Well, we appreciate that. Shout out, Bryce. And with that, Owen Dasher, we see us out.
On behalf of REIA Radio, Aiden Bear, and Ted Kosh, I'm Owen Dasher, and you've been listening to Bryce. I've got a graveyard of software companies. Matheson.
Sign off.
Where are you going with this?
No, I was just telling you a story. So,
like, let's go, man. It's 1:30 into this. Let's go.
Calm down. It's Christmas.
Dude, he's got shit to do.
The OT with Ted.
Well, I'm going fucking off script like you do. Okay.